So, as the chairperson rightly said, the resource person for today's workshop is no stranger to Sabaragam University as well as our faculty. So, to introduce the resource person and to welcome him to commence the workshop, let me invite Professor Manohari Uduporua, chairperson, Workshop Organizing Committee. Ma'am.
Yes, good morning to all. I think I am audible to you. Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, Conference Chair, Secretary, and all the members of the Conference Organizing Committee. Dr. Manoj Samarthunga, resource person of today's workshop, all the academic staff members and all the participants. Actually, it is a great pleasure for me to introduce our resource person of today's workshop, Dr. Manoj Samarthunga. Dr. Manoj Samarthunga is a senior lecturer in the Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management, Faculty of Management Studies, Rajaratna University of Sri Lanka. He obtained his bachelor honor degree in Tourism and Travel Services Management from Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka in the year 2010 and a master degree in the field of tourism economics and hotel management from the University of Colombo in 2014. His PhD is from the field of tourism planning and management from the Sichuan University, China, in 2020. Dr. Manoj Samarthunga is a prominent researcher and has made a significant contribution to the field of tourism management by carrying out extensive research, dissemination knowledge through many publications, delivering lectures on different themes of the discipline while undertaking various consultancies. His main research and expertise areas are qualitative research and in vivo, tourism planning and development, post-disaster tourism in South Asia, post-war tourism, peace building, host-guest relationships, and application of gaze in tourism. He serves as a coordinator of the International Center for Interdisciplinary Cultural Heritage and Tourism Research of China and Sri Lanka, and he is also the president of Sri Lankan Research Community, which is aimed at improving the research capacity of academics in Sri Lanka. He is a prominent researcher, author, verified peer reviewer, editorial board member, and a tourist consultant. In addition to all these, Dr. Manoj Samarthunga is an expert in the field of computer-aided qualitative data analysis with specialized knowledge on the in vivo software. With this expertise, he has become a well-known and experienced resource person in this field of qualitative data analysis. He has well contributed to improve the research capacity of academics in Sri Lankan universities by conducting workshops organized by the universities for staff development, as well as for local and international conferences. Furthermore, he has conducted many workshops on qualitative research and qualitative data analysis for other educational institutions, research institutions, local authorities, and business firms locally and internationally. Thus, I believe that we have actually chosen the ideal resource person for our first day workshop. As social scientists, we all use qualitative data, and sometimes analyzing and interpreting qualitative data may be somewhat complex and confusing. Therefore, better understanding, knowledge, and skills are compulsory to work in this field. Actually, I am very happy that we have considerable amount of participants for this workshop. So I think you will essentially enjoy this workshop and will be benefited from the workshop. So I cordially invite Dr. Manoj Samarthunga to commence the workshop, which is qualitative data analysis with a special reference to case studies. Thank you very much.
Iboan, thank you very much, Professor. Am I audible? Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Right, perfect. So again, greetings from Rajaratna University of Sri Lanka. This part of Sri Lanka, Anuradhapura Mihintale is again wet for a couple of days now. And it's cold weather, feeling like being back in Sabaragama University, because I know we really love the climate there. So so today I'm very much pleased to join with our colleagues, the academics at the Sabaragama University, and especially I'm thankful to the conference chairs and Professor Manohari Udupur for inviting me, and thank you, Dean Sir, Dr. Sampath Fernandu, for inviting me, and all the dear academic members, staff members of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, Sabaragam University of Sri Lanka, which is my mother university. So today we are going to talk about the qualitative data analysis with special reference to the case studies, and which is a very much needed topic to discuss at the present context, because I believe that the new knowledge, the contribution of new knowledge, especially to the body of knowledge, can be done mainly through the qualitative research. But when we take a cross section of Sri Lankan education system and again the research culture, we do not see that many qualitative research getting published in index journals, and we also do not see some high quality masters or the PhD research getting done in the system. But yes, quantitative research are dominating for many decades now, and we have to take the trend to the next level to shed more light into the academia and thereby contribute to the body of knowledge. So with that, let's start the session. I'm going to share my presentation. Right. Right. So I hope my screen is clear. Is it visible? Ms. Sumadi?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it is okay. Yes.
Right. Perfect. Right. Thank you. So before starting the session, I have to make a small disclaimer. Whenever I'm starting my sessions, speeches, I make a disclaimer because the knowledge is also a kind of a subjective thing. Because we as academics, we believe what we have read is correct, although there are many subjective errors, judgments, prejudices on our learnings as well. So the content we will discuss today is purely based on my own experience, and there's no absolute truth in the social sciences. Rather, it depends on how well we refine, or how well we define, refine, rectify, and justify it. The examples I'm using are purely based on what I have learned as important in not only in qualitative research methods, but also on how to communicate it and develop quality of the content. And you're free to hold different opinions. I respect that about research and knowledge creation and dissemination, as knowledge is also based on our lived experience. And so today the discussion topics are: what is a case study, and when to do a case study and when not to do a case study, and identifying a strong case, what features should we really look at, and collecting the data, and analyzing the case study data, and reporting the case study findings. In the meantime, I will be sharing many research articles, many cases with you on the case studies I have practically conducted and the challenges we faced and how we especially overcome them, and how to identify these gaps and overcome the validity and the reliability issues, which are burning issues in the field of qualitative research. So I hope all of you are familiar with the research onion of Saunders. So we have the first step, the research philosophy. We have to decide what philosophy we are following, and thereafter we have the research approach, and thereafter methodological choice. And fourth step is the research strategy. So today we are going to talk about the case studies, which is a research strategy. We are not going to talk about the research philosophy, research approach, and the methodological choice. Even though you have decided to or not to conduct case studies in your advanced studies, you still need to go through, you need to finalize what your research philosophy is and your research approach is, and what methodological choices you're going to select, and thereafter you have to finalize your research strategy. And today, hopefully after this session, you'll get some knowledge. I'll try my level best about to pour some case study related knowledge to you. So what is a case study? different scholars interpret that in different way. And to be frank, so far I have identified about more than 24 of definitions about case studies. Some are similar and some are different. When it comes to a case, the scholars are also at the argument to identify or to demarcate what a case is. Is it a person are we going to talk? Or is it a group of people are we going to talk? Or is it a village or a community are we going to talk? Or are we going to consider as a case? Or is it an incident or is it a phenomena that we are going to consider? Or can we consider a region, a country as a case? Or can we consider an organization, a process of an organization as a case? Or can we consider some medical procedures as a case? Actually, according to my readings, all of these can be considered as cases. All these can be considered as cases. Right. So we as qualitative researchers, we need to clearly demarcate what our boundary is. You can talk about a person, you can talk about an incident, you can talk about a religion, right? But you need to clearly demarcate your boundary, what you're going to talk. And that is your case. That is why we call it a case study. So some steps could be similar depending on the nature and the width and the depth of the case. But sometimes some steps are different from case to case. For instance, if you're considering a person as a case, the way you are going to collect the data could be different from a case where you consider an organization as your unit of analysis, right? So we can give you a rule of thumb here, but some guidelines on conducting case studies. So let's take them one by one. And with some examples, let's go forward to understand the scope of the case study and what it really do and what we really have to achieve. I just wanted to share one of my publications here, the transitional domestic tourist gaze in a post-war destination, a case study of Jaffna, Sri Lanka. I'll be coming back to this paper a little later, but I just wanted to introduce. In the meantime, in the chat box, you can see the link shared by Ms. Rupa Singha. You can download all the related research materials, workshop materials here. And please do not send the thank you messages. Then I'm getting distracted and I want to open the message and check whether you have any problems. And at every 10 or 15 minutes, I'll give you an opportunity to ask the question. So in that, wait for that moment, and then we can visit back in our slides and discuss it a little further. Now, in this particular case, a case study of Jaffna, Sri Lanka, we tried to identify the tourist gaze of southern domestic tourists who went to Jaffna, a post-war destination. We selected a distinct data, actually TripAdvisor data, and we identified a particular time period within which to collect the data. And we also justified why this sample, why this particular data source, why this particular time period for the editors or the reviewers here. And we know Jaffna is a district within which there are many tourist destinations. Now the complexity is, what are we going to observe there, or what are we going to analyze there? What is our unit of analysis? What is our context here? Actually, the post-war is the context here, but the unit of analysis, unit of observations are different. Because we were visiting 13 tourist attractions there, and we were monitoring different phenomena or activities which are taking place within these post-war contexts. When it comes to the case study research design, we can pick it up. And another paper is about Buddhist gaze and power in a post-war destination, a case study of Jaffna. Actually, here we have 4 main case studies. One is about the Hasalaka Gamini. The second one is about Nagadipa. The third one is about Nallur. The fourth one is about maybe Jaffna Market, as I remember. Or maybe the Delft. Fourth one is the Delft, right? So 4 cases were identified, but with the support of the theory, we happen to predetermine what we are going to observe. So before going into the field for the data collection, you need to have a clear-cut framework, your research design, your objective, and what you are going to observe there, what you are going to question. That is a part of a case study. And here another paper, the research on intangible ethnic tourism development after a civil war based on stakeholders' perspective, the case of Jaffna. Actually, this is a part of my a book which I authored about the intangible heritage of Hindu culture, and where we made many visits to Jaffna, and we did not have a predetermined places to identify where to see these intangible cultures. But we used different sampling methods, data collection methods, and we were able to collect some chunk of data, some rich data to conduct our study. Another case. Very recently, we published another study about Tibet, the tour guide sustainable tourism practices in host guest interaction when Tibet meets the West. And some of my co-authors, Pian, who is from Tibet, she's a Tibetan. Li Cheng is my actually PhD supervisor from China, and the Jeffrey Wall is a professor from Canada, Waterloo University. And we got together and we made our visits, we collected the data, we identified Tibet as the case, and we were paying attention to the sustainable tourism practices, some cases. And my PhD thesis, which is about post-war nationalistic tourist gaze and its impacts, a study based in Jaffna, Sri Lanka, is also a big case. It is not one case, but rather it's a collection of cases to identify the nationalistic gaze. We have the ethnic nationalistic gaze, we have the civic nationalistic gaze, we can see the transition of gaze and everything. And all these papers were published at top index journals, Web of Science, SSCI journals, right? Actually, Tourism Management Perspective, and this one, Tourism Review, A-star journals in the field of tourism. And we got very good comments about our cases that we highlighted. So what is the success about these cases? So what is the secret about making a successful case study investigation? And in my case, particularly, I'm very much fond of the case studies, because the case studies allow you to make an in-depth investigation on a phenomenon. It will not restrict you with some statistical references or some samples, or maybe with your p-values. No, it is all about you, because you go to the field, you go to this particular context, and you believe this is important for us. So you do the investigation, in-depth investigation, observations, and then you come to the conclusions. And here, especially in the case studies, because my area is like peace and the reconciliation and the post-war tourism development, right? Some disasters, some disastrous areas, yes, as Professor Manohari mentioned. So I like grabbing or diving into, or the plunge into the research context to identify some gems, some pieces of data, right, which haven't grabbed the attention of the academia. Still, for me, Jaffna is a kind of a nourishing ground, and we haven't done our studies because of this 3 decades long war. Many things got changed, got preserved, got destroyed, And people suffered, people died, people sacrificed, many things happened. So in such cases, in-depth investigations are a must. And I know most of you are from the social science stream. And in the social science, we have to study the human behavior, how they think, how they behave, how they act, and we might have to forecast their future acts. So in that case, we have to answer some questions like what, why, how, when. So when answering all those, in order to answer all those questions, the best solution or the best approach comes through the qualitative research and particularly with the case studies. As I earlier mentioned, what constitutes a case is disputed. Different scholars have different opinions about it. And as a case is an instance, incident, or unit of something and can be anything, a person, an organization, an event, a decision, an action, a location like a neighborhood or a nation state, we can consider a country as a case. We can consider the last night match in between these two countries, the FIFA match, as a case. Yes, we can do that. We can go to that level, or we can also go to the roadside book, a small shop or hotel, and consider it as a case as well. So there is no scope in the case. It is all about how you pursue it, how you bound it, how you justify it, and how you interpret it. And the Swanbo explained that cases can be located at the micro, meso, or macro levels and involve one actor or multiple actors. So you can pay attention to one incident, one person, or many incidents, many persons, or even artifacts. If you come to Anuradhapura or Polonnaru, there are many artifacts here. Starting from the Samadhi statue, Aukana statue, you can take it as a case as well. I have also seen at some academic establishments, including my own university, students are sometimes not allowed to do case studies. They think it is not sufficient. It is not strong enough to make a case. No, it is not like that. Even I have seen at the master's level, even the PhD levels, the case studies are not allowed, not by law, but as a practice. Actually, totally depend on to which extent the researcher can dive into this research context. If they are going to consider only the manifest content, whatever on the surface, well, I would agree with you. We should not allow the students to go for the case studies. But if it involves with the later content, where you are going to consider about the information, the underneath information, what is hidden behind, well, that need to be accepted. So we cannot, as qualitative researchers, we cannot restrict the students doing some kind of qualitative research, not the case studies, but because the case studies are also having the equal weight like any other qualitative research methods. And a case can be designated as specific and developed during the course of the research. Sometimes you have a kind of a phenomena. You go to maybe Mulati, you can go to Kandy, you can go to Goal, and then you are going to collect some data, and then you understand, okay, this is actually has happened, not what I thought. It is possible. This is a scientific inquiry. What you see is the surface. You just hear a news about some social event and you go there and you study, you live there. Basically, you are going to follow an ethnographic research by being there, some phenomenological research. After spending some time with the villagers there or with the people there, you will understand, okay, this is what I have to study. The case, when we are going to do the case studies, sometimes it will take a little time for you to observe the key data pieces, key variables. That is why we always ask the question, what has happened, why it has happened, how it has happened, etc. Alternatively, the case can be treated as a general or given. like individuals, families, households, cities, years, and independent of any particular investigation. When it comes to the cases, there are two things you have to understand. The case can be understood as an empirical unit, also as a theoretical construct. What I meant by the empirical unit is that it is there. It is there in the society, it is there in the village or in the city, and you can see it. You can see its features, you can see some symptoms. But if it is a theoretical construct, the case is basically made by the researchers by referring to the theories. You identify a theoretical gap and then you make it a theory. So it might not be available out there practically. So it is like hypothetical. It's a theoretical construct. So what is case is found? What do you mean by found? It is real, bounded, social entities are included. The specific natural phenomena identified in the course of the research. It is may be about a perahera. It may be about some incident, maybe Kirikoraha. You found the thing, you can see it. And again, empirically real and bounded, but given and general. Generally, it is there, you can see it. But it is the second one, theoretical construct, it is made, a specific theoretical construct imposed on the empirical evidence as the research progresses. At the very beginning, we cannot see the empirical evidences, but we can hypothesize it. We can make a proposition out of it. Then we go to the field with the intention of our case study and to identify the evidences. So it is made. The researcher has to make it. And then we have the convention. The case is aligned with the general theoretical construct that is product of prior scholarly work and thus external to any particular research effort, right? You refer to the literature, previous literature before going into the cases, right? And then with the light of the literature, you will be able to construct your case under the theoretical construct. I hope I'm clear. So what really is a case study? A case study is a research approach that is used to generate an in-depth, multifaceted understanding of a complex issue in its real life context. And it also investigates contemporary phenomena of the case in depth and within its real world context, especially when the boundaries between phenomena and the context may not be clearly evident. So as the researchers, it is our responsibility to step into such scenarios where the boundaries are not clear, if it is blurred, if it is dark, right? We have to step in and we have to shed light as the academia. So addressing the traditional concerns about the case study research. Is it rigorous enough? Sometimes people are, sometimes even our academics, we tend to ask the question, is it strong enough? Is it really make a case study? Is this researcher, can he do it? Is he kind of sloppy? He's not organized and he cannot do it. He doesn't have that analytical skills. Yes, I accept that. So as a research supervisors, we have a bigger role to play to drive the students towards an in-depth analysis, in-depth inquiry of the case he or she identified. And in the case studies, there's no systematic procedure. Sometimes you can have the little idea about the research problem you're going to solve, and then you go to the field, you collect the data. You can conduct a couple of random interviews with some spontaneous people, right? Some random guys, yes, to get the idea about the case there, what has happened, right? You identify, okay, somewhere there's a problem, okay, people are protesting, people are shouting, they're making a lot of trouble, right? You just get the idea to your head, okay, I should be going there and I need to explore this, investigate on this. Without conducting any literature survey, yes, you can go. You can ask some questions, right? Get some initial light into the study.
Hello.
But
And
Sorry, I think I just got disconnected.
No, it's okay now.
Yes, now it's okay.
Right. I'm sorry. Right. Can you see this screen again?
Not yet.
Not yet. Wait, sir. I think I shared something else. All right. Okay, sir.
Yes.
Right. Perfect.
Thank you.
So it's about they're asking the question: is it rigorous enough, and is this student will be able to go to that level? Their traditional concerns. That's true, and sometimes confusion with the teaching cases, because when we are reading a textbook, we can see the case studies, small cases. That is not the case study we are looking at this level. It is for study purposes. The student can take it as reading materials. And then generalizing from case studies, is it possible? Well, I would not recommend that. We cannot generalize the case study because this is a case. This is about Jaffna. I cannot generalize the Jaffna findings into Botswana or maybe to Croatia or maybe to Lithuania. No, I cannot. It applies to Jaffna only, but we should be able to generalize the findings into the theory. That is important in the case studies. In statistical world, yes, you can generalize into the population, but in the qualitative context, if you are doing a case study, you cannot generalize into the population, but you can generalize it into the theory. And sometimes unmanageable level of effort. When we are stepping into the case studies, we do not know the boundary. When we conduct more and more interviews, we understand how much less that we were aware of this particular case. We know nothing. So then in that case, you have to conduct more and more investigations, more interviews, more observations, more field visits. So you might feel, okay, it is unmanageable, which is correct sometimes, right? It might take too long compared to a quantitative study. Ethnographic study, for example, how long will it take? 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? Yes, it takes a lot of time. And the high level of data and the rich data you need to collect. Say you take an interview transcript, an interview conducted with the village headman or someone in the village, and it will come in 10 to 15 pages, and the transcribing process will take 3 to 4 hours. It is time consuming. Yes. So these reasons actually discourage the scholars doing the case studies. And now we come to the next small topic. How should I select the case for my case study? Case or cases. You need sufficient access to the data for your potential case. That is number one. Sometimes people, our students, our academics, we start collecting the data without understanding whether you are able to access to the data. And one of my master's students recently wanted to do a very good study about the LGBT tourists, LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgenders. They are the LGBT tourists. And I asked this simple question, okay, it's a wonderful study, and she had he had a wonderful theoretical gap as well. I asked, how are you going to reach those students? Are you going to ask each and every one of them? Are you going to LGBT? Are you part of that? Are you gay? Are you lesbian? No, you cannot. It's hard. It is hard. And then she suggested, okay, so I will get the information from the hotel managers. Oh my goodness, is the hotel manager is going to peep into the room? No. Oh, are the tourists writing that in their registration form, check-in forms? No. And it is a kind of a question that the hoteliers and the hotel professionals do not ask from the tourists. No. So we happen to change the topic and decide whether to interview people, review documents or records, or make field observations. Before selecting the case, we need to, right? Are you capable? The people simply blindly select the cases of they are here and some other places, and they haven't even been there. No, if you're going to do a case study, you should have been there. You should know the context there. You should have some context there at least, right? That is one thing. And second thing, you should have the access to the data, some documents, policies, books, something. You need to have them, because now here we are doing a game with the information about this particular case. A game with the data, right? And that cannot be collected through the 5-point Likert scale or the 7-point Likert scale. And given such access to more than a single candidate case, you should choose the cases that will most likely illuminate your research question. And absent such access, you should consider changing your research question, hopefully leading to new candidates to which you do have case, right? If you do not have that access. So, any questions so far? Because I have 6 main
schemes, sir. My
Yes.
name is Pushpadev, sir. I'm doing a master's in Colombo University.
Yeah.
My research topic is an analysis of potential development potential and prospect for rural tourism, sir.
Rural.
Tourism in Sri Lanka, sir.
Okay.
If I choose some case study, there should be in the beaches and the village.
Well, if you want to select Jaffna, if you want to select Mullatiu, if you are going to select a particular village or city, yes.
I think sir, Negombo, I will select sir, Negombo.
Yeah, that is up to you, but you need to justify it at your interview panel, your Viva panel, right? You need to discuss with your supervisor as well. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right. One more question. Samira, yes.
Hello, thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me, sir, clearly?
Yes, Samira.
Yeah, I'm asking, sir, what kind of desired skills or values, particularly like a case study researcher should have? Is there any particular values or desired skills?
Very good, Samira. Very good question. What type of values, skills that you should possess? Actually, for me, if you are going to be a researcher, going to do case studies, you should be curious. That is number one. You should have this academic curiosity to explore the new things, to shed light on new things, and to be satisfied with it. That is number one. And number two, this is not in the proper order, but the order that comes to my mind. Number two, you should be able to adapt to the local contexts, accept the local context, and acknowledge the local context, especially in the case study, local or whatever the case study context, because we are going to step into different research contexts. If you go to Vaunia, there's a way you should behave, or you are expected to behave. If you go to Srima Bodhi, there is a way you are expected to behave. If you are visiting the Madhupalya, there is a way you are expected to behave. So you should be able to acknowledge that, accept that. That's important. And number three, if you're doing a case study, you should have a kind of a good kind of a PR, right? Personal relationships. You should be able to build some strong relationships with your respondents, because you're going to get the data through the interviews. So before asking the questions, you need to establish a good relationship with your respondent. So how are you going to do that? You cannot simply introduce yourself saying, I'm so and so from so that and this university, this is my research, and please give me the answers. No, they will not. You must make them feel relaxed, open, especially if you're going to do an investigation about a kind of a sensitive research problem. It is important. And again, number four, your critical thinking. Critical thinking is important when you observe a kind of a phenomena. You go to Kandy, Daradam Maligaba, you see the Tevava there, And there you need to interpret the Tevada, how it is happening, why it is happening. So you should be able to ask the questions from yourself, why and why and why and why, 5 times. Then only you will get into the real answer. What has happened and why it is happening. And importantly, at the beginning also I told you, the interpretivism is important, the research approach, how well you can interpret the things. And because in qualitative research, unlike the quantitative research, it is totally based on your imagination, your critical thinking, and your academic discussions by yourselves. You read, you think, you argue with yourselves, and then you come to conclusions. So it is totally up to you. So there are very many qualities that are expected of a qualitative researcher. And that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, now we are moving forward. So when to use a case study and when not to use a case study. How do I know if I should use the case study method? Sometimes people get stagnated. People get lost. Okay, is it going to be a case study or is it going to be something else? What? There's no formula. We cannot draw a line saying that, okay, these studies need to be conducted using the case studies, and these should be experimental, the others should be surveys. There's no such formula. It is very subjective. It is also depend on how well you can justify your case. Rumesh, yeah, please stop that. Thank you. And your research questions, the more that your questions seek to explain some present circumstances, like how or why, the more that case study research will be relevant. Now, in a case study, if you are going to investigate something new and you are not going to ask the questions about how many or what, to which extent, no, but some general questions like how and why, and that has not been addressed before. In that case, you have to use the case study. If it had been addressed before, then you can see the variables, then you can see the dimensions, then you can see the items, right? Which will lead you to do a quantitative study. So basically, in an area where less studies have been conducted, you have to conduct the case studies. And the method also is relevant. The more that your question require an extensive and in-depth description of some social phenomenon. And sometimes we cannot give a kind of a statistical value to an incident. Now, my popular example is that suppose you're a school teacher and you work at a school where there are 5,000 number of school students. And one day you find an empty liquor bottle, just one. So you take it to the principal and you show it to the principal saying that, okay, so I found this. And principal is very good in maths. He has done a degree in kind of maths or maybe statistics. So he make a little calculation. Okay, now it is 1 divided by 5,000 and multiplied by 100. He'll make a kind of a assumption. Okay, so so this is like 0.000 kind of a thing you have just identified with the empty liquor bottle. So if you're going to give a statistical value to such a case, right, using percentages, well, no, you're failed. Having found an empty liquor bottle at a school is much more critical. So you need to pay your particular attention to that, right? Your careful attention to that, your individual attention to that. Similarly, in a baker, you buy a bread and you find a cockroach in a loaf of bread and you complain it to the Mudalali, and the Mudalali says, no, madam, per day we bake 10,000 bread and you are complaining about one. So the statistical significance is like again 0.4 zeros and 1. It is not significant, we are saying. Well, in qualitative research, we pay attention to these key incidents, critical incidents, right? Where statistically you cannot address. So in that cases also, you can use the case study method. And the other thing, field of use, where we can use the case studies for the psychology, sociology, political science, anthropology, social work, business, education, nursing, and community planning. Many fields you can use the case study approach. And especially I can see a large number of studies which were conducted on psychology and the medicine, the cases, and decide to understand the social phenomena. If you want to understand some complex social phenomena, say you want to understand the religious practices at Nallur Kovil during the July and August, the festival season, you have to go there at 3 in the morning and see how the people are worshipping or paying their respect to Lord Muruga, right? So in depth or complex social phenomena are there. Many things are happening, but we cannot give a statistical value. And every research method can be used for all three purposes: exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory studies. And you, in your case studies, how we are going to do that? So there are explanatory or casual case studies, and there are descriptive case studies and exploratory case studies. So that need to be decided at the very beginning, whether it's explanatory, descriptive, or exploratory. Because according to the nature of the study, you have to have different data collection methods, analysis methods, and different frameworks to work on. And basically the explanatory case studies, we aim to answer the questions like how or why. How or why. For example, an investigation into the reasons of Sri Lankan Aragalaya 2022, we had a big issue. We are asking why it happened, and how it happened. That is explanatory. That is explanatory. So what is descriptive then? Impact of increased ragging on student academic, impact of increased ragging on students' academic performance, a case study of Sri Lankan State University. That is kind of descriptive, because we are not going to ask the questions like how or why, but we are going to check the impact here. In the descriptive case studies, the aim is to analyze the sequence of interpersonal events after a certain amount of time has passed. The studies in business research belonging to this category usually describe culture, subculture, and they attempt to discover the key phenomena. Business research as well, and also we can take the educational research. We can consider some time periods. For example, the first year we know the students' academic performance is low, but when it comes to the second year, second semester, they pick up. Third year good, and fourth year maximum. Right? So then we can do a kind of a descriptive case study like how this ragging thing impact on the students' academic performance. And then we come to the exploratory case studies. It is aimed to find answers to the questions like what or who, what has happened and who has done it, or where it has happened. An exploratory case study data collection method is often accompanied by additional data collection methods such as interviews, questionnaires, experiments, etc. And you can have many data collection methods. I have just mentioned a few. Now here, another example, a study into differences of leadership practices between private and public sector organizations in Sri Lanka. That is an exploratory research study. So once you have a research problem, you need to identify whether it's an explanatory case study, descriptive case study, or exploratory case study. And that you need to justify at the introduction as well. Let it be a journal article or let it be a dissertation. Then the reviewers, then the examiners know, okay, the students know something. And he has clearly mentioned, okay, this is this type of a case study. Then he also set his mindset to evaluate your paper or a dissertation accordingly. So types of research questions: who, what, where, how, and why questions. Mostly we find in the case study research. And if research questions focus mainly on what questions, there could be two possibilities when it comes to the question what. Number one, some types of what questions are exploratory, such as what can be learned from a study of a startup business? What can be learned? Number two, what represent like how many, some quantifiable answers or how much. What? right? Line of inquiry. And what have been the ways that communities have assimilated new immigrants? Okay, we can consider Colombo, or we can consider Perth, Australia. They are receiving so many immigrants. So in that case, the countable numbers will appear. So what has two dimensions? And similar, like the second type of what question, who and where questions are likely to favor the survey method. We have the statistics coming in again. Who and where questions, right? Who came, where it happened, and how many again, right? Or the analysis of archival data as in economic studies. We can look into the economic policies and the growth rates, right? We ask the question, what has happened? What has been the inflation rate? What has been the reserves foreign currencies, right? You can cover such questions as well. But basically, the how and why are more into the exploratory. It will allow you to go into this in-depth analysis, whereas the questions like what, who, where are like you're touching the surface, right? And then you analyze it by looking at the data that you see at hand. And however, questions are more explanatory and likely to read the use of a case study, history, or experiment as the preferred research method. So tell me, what best suits your study? What if there are like a master's or PhD students, have you considered about these questions like what, who, where, how, and why?
Yes.
Okay. If you can slightly explain that.
In my MSc thesis, I'm going to examine the how and why questions, because according to the Robert K. he's the one of the main pioneer case studies in Europe. He explained when you use the questions like we mentioned, how and why, then it is best to use the holistic single case study.
All right. Okay. And what's your research area?
My research area in the field of human rights.
Right. Okay, Samira. Thank you. Right. Anyone else considering how, what, why, where? I like to discuss because this should not be a lecture. If you have anything. Right. Okay, we can proceed. There's a question in the chat box. If you take a person as a case, is there a recommended number of cases if it is a doctoral research? In the PhD level, I cannot give you the exact answer here because I don't see your research problem, right? And basically, with one case, it is hard. You cannot do a doctoral level research, even in the medicine, say, even not, right? Say you can say in the medicine that a doctor might find a mutant with some different features, different organ or kind of a thing, or different performance, but still it is not sufficient. You need to have a pool of respondents, and then you keep on collecting data till you reach the saturation. So data saturation, you can write it down. It is the point where there is no new data is emerging. We also have the theoretical saturation, which means that you collect the data till you reach a theory. Right. Number 3, the third section, identifying a strong case or designing case studies. So when it comes to designing a case study, just like any other conventional case study, there are a few things you need to consider. In the research design, basically what we pay attention is where you are now and where you should be, and there's a big gap, and how we are going to fill this gap, right? So you have the research problem and you need to have an answer. Okay, you look at the answer, the hypothetical answer, right? And then you have some steps to make. So it includes your data collection method, your methodology, your analysis, your kind of some literature contributions, so on and so forth. So in case study, you need to plan it out at the very beginning. And another way of thinking about research design is as a blueprint. So when you are designing it, you need to have a kind of a blueprint, right? This is what you should be following. Because in social science research, you could easily get distracted. You could easily get distracted because you're going to open yourself into a huge pool of data. A huge pool of data. And you could easily get distracted. So you need to write it down, mention somewhere very clearly, if possible, paste it in front of your working desk. So you are looking at, okay, this is my scope and this is the level I should be going, right? And this is how you are going to reach it. That need to be done. And again, when it comes to the case studies, if you have like, sometimes if it is a master level or a PhD level, you have to do a couple of case studies to reach your research objective. Even in my master's thesis, I did many case studies, right? And they were presented separately. And then I happen to mention what is my research objective and through which case study I'm going to reach it and what methodologies I'm going to implement for the data collection, analysis, and everything. So you need to go to that level. Then it is very clear that that will be your blueprint, which you need to be printed in your wall. For your research, dealing with at least 4 problems, what questions to study, what data are relevant, what data to collect, and how to analyze the results. And let's think about how to design the case study. So basically, when designing the case study, at the very beginning, before collecting the data, you need to have some protocols. Number 1, you should have a case study question. One question or couple of questions. And number 2, it's propositions. In qualitative research, we do not have hypotheses, but we have research propositions. Number 3, we should have a unit of analysis. How we are going to analyze it, right? And what we are paying attention, what are our observable contents, our unit of analysis. And number 4, the logic linking the data to the proposition, how we are going to combine it. Because proposition is kind of a kind of a hypothesis, but before theory jumping in, right, constructively, we just postulate. And at some point, you have to prove whether your proposition is correct or not descriptively. You have to write without taking the statistics, without taking the p-values. And number 5, the criteria for interpreting the findings. So these questions or these 5 components are very much important when you are designing a case study. So the case study questions, number 1, the who, what, where, how, and why, we discuss about it, provides an important clue regarding the most relevant research method to be used. And the case study research is most likely to be appropriate for how and why questions only, right? What, who, where are some other areas. So your initial task is to clarify precisely the nature of your study questions in this regard, right? You need to have a very clear idea what you are going to reach. And then you discuss with your supervisor, and then you set your path, you make your blueprint. So case study question is number 1. And according to the question, the method will get changed, just like the how and the case studies is most likely to be appropriate for how and why, as I told you. And the other methods are different. Other questions have other methods. And second, if you have propositions, as for the second component, each proposition directs attention to something that should be examined within the scope of the study and developed with the support of the theory. So what is the research proposition? It is a statement about the concepts that may be judged as true or false if it refers to observable phenomena. When a proposition is formulated from empirical testing, it is called a hypothesis. So the first step, actually one step before forming the hypothesis, is the proposition building. In qualitative research, we deal with some data there where no statistical or no scientific inquiries have been already conducted. We are going to touch some unexplored areas. no variables, no indicators, no items, then what you should be having? You can have a proposition. You believe, okay, this is how it should be, this is how it will be, and then you try to prove that. Once you reach your proposition with the support of the theory, well, from there onwards, you can go for maybe exploratory factor analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, and develop some scales to propose your hypothesis or to prove your hypothesis. So proposition is number one. And then the unit of analysis, very important. When you're going to study a social phenomena, what is your unit of analysis? Is it people? Is it processes? Is it organizations? Is it artifacts? Or is it a perahara? Or is it an agricultural activity like harvesting? What is your unit of analysis? You need to identify that. And in defining the case, for instance, the classic case studies usually focus on an individual person as the case, one of the cases in person. So a case can also be a group, communities, decisions, programs, so organizational change and specific events. Even Sri Lankan constitution can be considered as a case. You can study that. And similarly, you might at first identify a specific local, such as a city as your case, or maybe a person as your case. If you are going into a research area, research problem, where there are absolutely no previous studies, and again, you do not know who your respondents are, and even in that case, you have to find some key informants, right? Before, and with their help, only you can go for the unit of analysis to identify the unit of analysis. However, your research questions and data collection might, in fact, be limited to tourism in the city, city policies, or city government. If it is like, if your research is about tourism, and you're going to do a research about the urban tourism, right? So city policies, city government, what are you going to analyze? Oh, and again, remember, you can have many units of analysis. We will come to that later. We call it the data triangulation. Under data triangulation, you can do that. And these choices would differ from defining the geographic city and its population as your case. And as a general guide, the tentative definition of your case is related to the way you define your initial research questions. Even at the very beginning, I told you, you need to have your own definitions. Actually, in research, we can call it the working definition. By a case, what do you mean by a case? What do you mean by a phenomena? What do you mean by some social constructs? You have to give the clear idea to the reviewers, to your examiners. Then they will find it easy to go through or follow your report. And most researchers will want to compare the findings with the previous research. It is important, right? What happened in Sri Lanka? What happened in India? What happened in Indonesia, or maybe Bahrain, or maybe in United States, right? What is the behavior of the Sri Lankan unit of analysis? There's some people, right? And how the people in India accepted it, or maybe they responded to it. Look at a cricket match. Our unit of analysis could be our audience, Prekshakyo, right? All these people. So how they respond to the cricket match? We can have a cross-sectional case study across the world or across the South Asia. How the Sri Lankan cricketers behave, how the Indian cricketers behave, how the Pakistan cricketers behave. And then it is important that you link data to your propositions. Now see, when we are conducting the qualitative research, mostly our students, our colleagues are also asking, in qualitative research, what you are going to show with respect to the research problem? How to give it, how to present it? Or can I simply write like 50 pages? No, you're wrong. You cannot do that. What you have to do is that you need to justify, or you need to clearly identify the key features of your case. Key features, just like the tree. Now look at this tree. It has a trunk, it has fruits, it has branches, it has a twig, it has leaves, it has flowers, and it has root, right? Barks, everything. So these are the features of the tree. Just like that, you need to justify, you need to identify and justify the features of your case. Say, you are going to explain the behavior of some culture, the people, how they behave in a particular community, a rural community, what you have to talk. You have a general objective of exploring their culture, distinct culture. They are in a kind of a mid of a jungle, kind of a thing, some remote village. So in that case, what are the main features? You have to observe their maybe marriage traditions, funeral traditions, whatever, right? Their food, their clothes, their this and that behavior, right? You need to identify these small behaviors, right? Maybe their investments too. If they are they still into barter economy, or are they using the currency, right? You need to divide or split these things into smaller segments, and then only you can go for a descriptive analysis, which can be ultimately combined with the research propositions. Right. Now look at this case. Right. Now this was adapted from Yin 2017, one of the leading academics on case studies. Now these are the individuals are more concrete. We can look at the behavior of these people, we can interview them, we can question them, and we can give some concrete findings. You can do a kind of an observation, focus group discussion about small group with small groups, and then you can put forward the findings. You can look at some organizations, look at their annual reports and give you observations. Or you can look at the partnerships in between two companies. They sign an MOU and thereafter product goes up, technology transfers and staff transfers. You can talk about it. It's more concrete. You can see it. But now these are different phenomena. Some contexts which are less concrete. Community, for example, it could have maybe 10 houses or maybe 500 houses. It's a community, a small or big community, and their behavior, it's kind of complex. And the relationship that you have in between the mother and the baby, what type of a relationship is that? How you are going to define it? How you are going to exploit? Is it can you give a value, or can you just observe it and give some values just like you did with the small groups? No, it is hard sometimes. So case studies are not always easy. It is not always easy. You have to identify the bond between the husband and the wife, or maybe the rivalry between two enemies, right? In India, some villages, some cities, they fight over the water, and it has been kind of lengthified, like length in the sense the history goes back to some decades, right? So it is a lot less concrete. There are no concrete evidences to identify such phenomena. And the decisions, how you are going to make it, and how you made decisions, what helped you to make decisions, they're important. And the projects, less concrete because they keep on changing. Number 5, then we come to the criteria for interpreting a case study's finding. We need to here identify and address rival explanation for your findings. What do you mean by a rival explanation? In case studies, we need to present our data, our findings in comparative tones. I told you, it is not only about Jaffna we are speaking, but also about Iraq you need to talk, but also about Baghdad, about maybe Seoul in Korea. It was a warring destination once, right? Or maybe some other places like Jerusalem. Some alternative theories are there, alternative contexts are there. You need to get the support from those cases and explain it here. Explain it with the Sri Lankan case. And addressing such rival becomes a criterion for interpreting your findings. And the more rival that have been addressed and rejected, the stronger will be your findings. Say, you take many cases or the observations from tribal cases in other post-war destinations. From other post-war destinations, you get a lot of findings, but then you check whether you have the same thing in Jaffna. Okay, you make a list, 10, you say yes. So there's nothing novel, there's nothing new here, right? But if you can find some 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of some distinct features, right, which is available only in Sri Lanka compared to all other case studies, well, that is a gem. That is what you need to be looking at. And at the design stage of your work, the challenge is to anticipate and enumerate the important rivals. So you will include data about them as part of your data collection, right? You need to take the cases. You need to learn from alternative cases, right? And then you make your questionnaires, interview questionnaires, right? And maybe the survey data. Then the process will be much easier. And if you only think of tribal explanations after data collection has been completed, you will be starting to justify and design a future study. But you will not be able to helping to complete your current case study. There could be occasions, right? Okay, once you get into some data, okay, your time has lapsed, right? And you have to submit something. So maybe perhaps next time you have to do something. Actually, after conducting the master's research, PhD research, you will get the real knowledge. My goodness, I should have done it in this way, the other way, right? There are so many issues. Even after 3 years after completion of my PhD, now I'm reading I still see some issues. I could have done better. Because over the time, we get the knowledge, we get more wisdom. And for this reason, specifying important rival explanations is also part of case study, research, design work. So what we should try is to get the support of the previous literature as much as possible. Try to get some similar cases which has happened somewhere else in the world, get their features, get their unit of analysis, try to do the repetitions here if possible, right? And then you need to go for the new thing, the novel things, right? Right. Okay. Now, when it comes to the statistics, it is easy. The acceptance or the rejection, the likelihood with the p-values, but in qualitative research, you need to justify the acceptance or the rejection in big pages, maybe 10, 20, 30 pages with different materials, with different preferences, with different cases. Why this particular case is important, why this finding is important, and how it is similar to other cases, or how it is different from other cases. You need to explain that very well. Right. Now, this is important. This is the case study research design. This was from the Cosmos Corporation, 2014. They invented this model. Again, the principal author was Yin. Now, we can have single case design and single unit of analysis. So you have the context and you have the case. I'll come to this. Now, say you want to observe the behavior of the domestic tourists visiting Jaffna. I think I have some other explanation. Yeah, I will come there. I'll come to the examples later. So the first research design is you have the single case and the single unit of analysis, which is very easy, which is very convenient and very popular among the undergraduates. And the second thing is that you can have multiple cases, which means now here we can have one city, one village, one community. That is your that is your case, right? But here, maybe 4 villages, 4 cities, multiple cases are there. But the unit of analysis is the same. We'll come to it. And the third option is that we have the single case design. Case is same, but you can have multiple unit of analysis. Or the fourth scenario, multiple case design is there, and we have the multiple unit of analysis here. And this is more complex. Actually, even in my PhD, I followed this particular method. You can have multiple case designs and you can have multiple unit of analysis. We'll come to them one by one. So single case or the context and the single unit. The single case can represent the critical test of significant theory, and the case represent an extreme case or an unusual case. So this is very much palpable in the in the psychology research, in the medical research. Single case, they look at the behavior of one particular patient, But in management research, no. In social science research, no. Perhaps you can take a religious leader and discuss about it, single case. Or maybe you can take a kind of a reputed literate, or maybe like some author, someone, right? The names doesn't come. So there you pay attention to the single unit. Specify injury or disorder, right? And here we have to consider about the common case. Here the objective is to capture and the circumstances and the conditions of an everyday situation. So one we are paying attention to one particular case, one particular incident, one particular phenomena at one particular place, right? We are not going to pay attention to the other places, other incidents. We also have the revelatory case. This situation exists when a researcher has an opportunity to observe and analyze a phenomenon previously inaccessible to social science inquiry. Revelatory, it is new, right? We just observe the new case, new one incident, and you are investigating on it. Number three, we can have the longitudinal case, studying the same single case at two or more different points in time. Maybe before the budget and after the budget, the behavior of the government, or maybe the behavior of the cricket fans before the cricket match and after the cricket match. One match, one cricket fan base, single case, single unit. It is clear. And the other example is that when it comes to my research, post-war, the behavior of the domestic tourists visiting Jaffna. So the context is the post-war, and the case is the domestic tourists. They visit Jaffna, right? I'm not going to consider other post-war destinations like Mullatil or maybe Vaunia. No, just Jaffna, one. And again, I'm not going to consider the foreign tourists, only Jaffna, because why? Single unit of analysis. So remember, now when you are conducting your research, you need to identify whether it's going to be single unit or multiple units, or single case or multiple cases. Then we have the single case and multiple unit. Now, this is where it is, single case and the multiple unit. Now, for example, still now in this case, the context is similar. Still the post-war context in Jaffna, but we are going to pay attention to the behavior of domestic tourists and the foreign tourists. Earlier, one unit of analysis, only the domestic tourists. But the second scenario, we consider both domestic tourists and the foreign tourists, right? The evidence from multiple units is often considered more compelling, and the overall study findings will have a greater validity. Because why? In the previous case, in the single case, sometimes the reviewers might ask why you haven't considered the foreigners visiting here. They might have different opinions, etc. And the conduct of a multiple unit study will allow the researchers to cover a broad range of research contexts. And each unit must be carefully selected so that distinct behavior could be easily monitored. How the local tourists behave and how the foreign tourists behave, etc. Any questions about these two? Otherwise, if you have anything. Only Samir has questions.
Sir,
Yes, Samir, yeah. Oh, anyone else? Yeah. Pushpadeva, yeah.
my problem statement is lack of rural tourism knowledge in the villages. Can I turn to it to the questions like why they haven't that type knowledge?
Pushpadeva, that is the this is not the correct platform to discuss about it. Perhaps later right? But do you have any questions related to this single unit of analysis or the cases here?
Okay, sir. That's I have to analyze that the problem statement. Why they haven't that type knowledge to the promote our rural tourism in Sri Lanka, sir. That is a objective and problems. I want to turn out as a questions.
All right. Perhaps we can talk at the end of the session.
Okay, sir.
If
Okay,
you have
sir.
any question regarding the cases, you can ask, right?
Okay, sir.
Sandharuan, yes.
Yeah, actually, my question is not exactly related to the 4 types of case study according to the yin,
Yeah.
but in qualitative research such as the case study, do we need to situate our positionality in case study research? If so, when where is the place we should put our positionality in the case study research?
Right. Very good. Right. Sandharuan, when it comes to our positionality, there are actually, we need to again check with our institution, according to our, again with our supervisor, whether it is allowed. Now, in my cases, I get the approval about to put my position in. Actually, I believe that the researcher should have the freedom to mention it. So what I would recommend is that in methodology, you can put forward your position. Then the reviewers will understand, okay, he has done the analysis having this position in mind, right? And that is the correct place. Or perhaps at the introduction, you can simply, or maybe in a nutshell, maybe in couple of, maybe in one sentence, you can mention about it, but your positionality will best suit at the methodology section. But again, you need to get the consent of the journal and maybe at the supervisor, because some schools are having different positions about that.
Of course, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Lasita. Miss
Yes,
Lasita?
yes, sir. This is what my question is. Now, when we do it, now I am a linguistic graduate, and my question is, whenever we go to do study, I mean case studies in case study research in linguistics, sometimes it is highly challenging. The reason is we have to sometimes interview a lot of things. So then when we interview, so sometimes they will not reveal most of the things. Sometimes they will reveal, sometimes they will not reveal. So how to now to get rid of that challenge, we have to interview many. Even though there may be things that they do not like to reveal or they will not reveal. So that is a challenge. I would like to request you to tell us how to get rid of that of challenge.
Thank you, Lasita. Again, an important question about these missing pieces of the puzzle. And it is not restricted to the linguistic studies, but also cross-sectionally, maybe into the social science, anthropology, and everywhere you can see this particular issue. One of the main things that I can recommend, and I would recommend to the scholars, is that first you develop a good bond with the respondents, right? You sit with them, you invite them for a coffee, and that depends again with the context and whether they are like, and there are many things. I have done a wonderful study about the Beach Boys, and and it's a kind of a sensitive data I wanted, especially with respect to the sexual transmitted diseases as well, because I had another research partner from the Ministry of Health. So at the very beginning, I did not reveal my true intention. I approached them through another friend who used to be a beach boy. So I went to these homes. I spent a couple of days with them. I went to the beach with them. I even spoke with the foreigners, right? Just playing the beach volleyball and everything. So I won their confidence over the time, maybe a couple of days later, after a couple of rounds of beer. And then I slowly approached one by one. And then I explained my true objective, why my being there, why I'm there, right? And then I was able to collect the data, all the required data within like 3 weeks time. But I don't think in the linguistic you need such sensitive and in-depth data. But perhaps maybe with little activities, maybe with little motivations, maybe giving some gifts or kind of a thing, that is also a kind of a method that you can encourage the respondents to actively participate in our discussions. That is also recommended. And again, it is and perhaps the interview environment, whether you conducted the interview in front of their parents or maybe in front of their lecturers or teachers, they might not reveal that as well, right? And maybe what type of a place and even the time, right? So there are a whole lot of things you have to consider when setting this interview background. But I personally believe that if we have the right methodology, if we have the right approach, the data can be abstracted. You can, right? I have interviewed some the rehabilitated LTT cadres, right? Some wonderful people. I have got some very sensitive data during my PhD tenure. I have been to many places, and even I got some data against the Chinese government from the Chinese people, right? After being with them. So, so researchers' approach need to be kind of customized according to the research problem and the context. That's my recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Right, thank you, Rasita. Okay, so we discussed about the single case design and the multiple unit of analysis. Now let's talk about the multiple case design. Now in this case, we spoke only about Jaffna, just one. Jaffna only the domestic tourists, and here domestic tourists and the foreign tourists. But here, what are we going to do? We have the Jaffna, we have the Mulatu, we have the Vaunia, and we have Mana, right? And single unit of analysis, which means only the Sinhalese tourists. Domestic tourists are considered, not the Sinhalese, but the domestic tourists are your unit of analysis, right? So that is the third one. I will go to the explanation. So multiple cases and the single unit. The evidence from multiple cases is often considered more compelling, and the overall study is therefore regarded as being more robust. And not all the phenomenon could be studied through single cases. One case is not sufficient. Unusual or extreme cases, the critical case and the revelatory case are some exceptions, especially which are being used in the medical and the health and the psychology. But in social science, it is better that we have multiple cases. And the conduct of multiple case study can require extensive resource and the time beyond the means of a single student or independent research investigator. So in that case, because we know you go to Jaffna, it will go to collect the data in Jaffna, it will take a couple of weeks. Then how about visiting 4 places? It will take like months or maybe half of the year. It's time consuming, right? It's very costly. So we need to work in groups as well. So we need to have our boundary. Okay, how we are going to collect the data, with whom we are going to collect the data, and to which extent are we going to go? We need to decide that during the research designing phase. And each case must be carefully selected so that either predicts similar results or predict contrasting results, but for anticipatable reasons or theoretical replication. And the ability you should be able to conduct like 6 to 10 cases as well. Now here, again, going back to my main slide here at the Yin's models, you can have the Jaffnas, Manas, Mulatu, and Baunia. And here you will find some data are appearing, the same data may be appearing at all these 4 contexts. All these 4 contexts, the similarities you need to report important. And again, there could be differences, maybe limited to Vaunia, limited to Jaffna, limited to Mana, and limited to Kilinochi, kind of a thing. Those data are important when it comes to multiple case and then single use of unit of analysis. And finally, we come to the multiple cases and the multiple units. And then we will further discuss with a research paper. Now, multiple contexts and multiple units. Here, I told you the 5 districts we are visiting, and not only the domestic tourists, but also the foreign tourists. The rationale for multiple case designs derives directly from your understanding of literal and theoretical replication. You go to the field with the support of the theory. You develop the questions with the support of the theory as well. And you have to ask the same questions over and over across the cases you have selected, because we need to have some similar data and different data, but you have to always keep your eye on new data. And the simplest multiple case design would be the selection of 2 or more cases that are believed to be literal replications, such as set of cases with exemplary outcomes in relation to some evaluation question. And selecting such cases require a prior knowledge of the outcomes, with a multiple case inquiry focusing on how and why the exemplary outcomes might have occurred and hoping for literal replication of these. So what are replicating, what are appearing, and what are repeating need to be identified, and what are the exclusives, what are the exemplaries need to be discussed separately. I'm going to open a paper in which we use these multiple cases and multiple unit of analysis. Just to discuss really quick. Right. Do you see the Buddhist gaze paper in the screen? Can you see?
Yes, we can say, sir.
Right. Okay. Now here, my topic is Buddhist gaze. Now, gaze is basically the visual consumption of the destination. Now, context is the pause for destination, but we are not going to limit it to the pause, limit it to one particular destination, but many. Now, let's see quickly what these destinations are. The study site is Jaffna, Sri Lanka, but still, it is presented through different cases. The pause for Buddhist travels in Sri Lanka, one case. So this is an incident. And Buddhism during the war. It is not geographical cases we identified, but some phenomena, but some key incidents. The papers were sent to you via the chat box with a Google link. You can visit the link and download all the papers. And Buddhism during the war. And then the ethnic cleansing by the LTTE, and some religious things. And the 4 cases we identified here were the memorial of Gamini Kularatna, Nagadeepa Purana Viharaya, number 3, Dhammakola Patana Sangamita Temple, number 4, Nagavihara Temple, number 5, Kadurugada Temple, number 6, destroyed Buddhist stupas at Delft, right? So these are our cases. And our unit of analysis are basically about the ethnic nationalism, right? They were derived from the ethnic nationalism, that kind of concept about this hegemony, about this, there are many concepts in it. And we descriptively described how it was fostered or presented at the post-war area, right? And the importance of the religion at each and every place, because religion had a bigger role to play. And also the conceptual unitary state, not the conceptual, but it is the unitary state of Sri Lanka we were discussing the cross-sectionally. And the destruction caused by the LTTE, and then also the destructions caused by the Sri Lankan army as well, right? And the ideologies of the local people, local community, how they think, how they viewed the post-war scenarios, and again the politics at the Nagadeepa and the Nagavihara temple and the Sangamita temple, right? We have been to all these places, Kadrugoda. So multiple cases were studied here, again with multiple units of analysis. So this is a comprehensive study. Please read it to get an idea how on building a successful case study, used in multiple cases and multiple unit of analysis. And here I'm going to share another document. I just shared you my PhD thesis. Can you see it? PhD thesis.
Yes, we can see, sir.
Right. I'm going to take single page. Yeah, I'm going to show you my actually this is a 420 page report. I'm going to show you the my table of content. Just give me a second. Continue scrolling. Yeah. Right. Literature review and the research field. Let's go to the data. All right. Here. The research now my study, I completed my study with different research propositions talking about the ethnic nationalism and the civic nationalism, peace and reconciliation, and tourism development. So one of the case studies I adopted here was construction of ethno-religious nationalistic gaze during the first phase of post-war travels in Sri Lanka, especially after 2009. Why the southern people went to Jaffna in search of what? So case study setting, background, and design and procedure, and the analysis, everything were presented here. And then I come to the second case study, a different research context and different unit of analysis, construction of civic nationalistic tourist gaze during the second phase of post-war travel in Sri Lanka. And everything were analyzed and discussed here. And then I come to the case study 3, the ethnographic analysis of post-war host-guest interaction. Especially we conducted auto-ethnography analysis based on 6 train rides to Jaffna from Colombo. We were sitting with the people, observing, discussing with them, and again traveling with them to different parts of Jaffna. So these are like multiple cases where we implemented multiple units of analysis. So, and thereafter, the findings were sent to the quantitative study for statistical analysis. So basically, this is a mixed method research. Do you have any questions here? We cannot discuss in depth because this is a over 400 pages report.
So what kind of statistical analysis, I mean, what kind of inferential statistical analysis did you use in quantitative part in your PhD thesis, sir?
Yeah, actually, we identified some key research propositions. Later on, we converted into research hypotheses, which were respected to this nationalism, right? And with some sensitive data, and we wanted to develop a scale to show the relationship with the tourism. So we went for the scale development, exploratory factor analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, and all these traditional SPSS and the smart PLS analysis we conducted, and we made some conclusions to identify these relationships.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Any other questions? No, right. You can proceed. I'm going to share my presentation again. For autoethnographic data collection, how do we take ethical clearance Well, we have the ethical clearance committees at the faculty levels, at the university level. So you have to produce a small proposal, submit them, explain why you need the ethical, why you need this autoethnographic research and the importance of it and your unit of analysis. And I'm sure the ethic review committee will look into your inquiry. And in my case, I applied to it from my university, China Sichuan University, and I got the required clearings. But again, we need to understand that different countries are having different criteria when it comes to giving ethical clearances for the researchers. For instance, New Zealand, Australia are very, very critical about these ethical clearances, and they are very, concerned about the people's emotions and the feelings and the behaviors, and even about the photos. So it is different from school to school, and again from research context to context, and from country to country. So you can try your luck with your particular university. Yeah, Norway as well. Yes. There's another question. Did you select abductive approach? Actually, it doesn't come to my mind right now. I will try to answer it during the session. Right. So now you tell me, now I know some of you are doing the master's thesis and the PhD research, and some of you are doing your own research, right, personally at the university. Which approaches are you using? And which you think best match for your study research problem?
Is it possible to answer?
Since no one else is answering, yes.
Yeah, because I'm talking, I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, in my case, I have planned to use, multiple, single case study design. The reason why I selected single case study design as per the Robert K. Yin, and like you mentioned, it is the case I am going to examine in Kandy. There is little exploration in that area. So that is one of the reasons I selected single case study design, and because I have limited time as well. Therefore, I selected single case study to get in-depth analysis. I am using the mixed method along with the case study.
And your unit of analysis again single or multiple?
Single, sir.
It is. So you are here, right?
Yeah, that is why I am here.
Right. So it is an easy approach, most convenient, but okay, you are okay at the master's level as long as, but you have to explain that elaboratively. You have to explain it in deep. Right.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else doing some similar studies, maybe with multiple cases, multiple unit of analysis?
So can I just share some of my thoughts as well?
Yeah, please.
I'm actually doing my PhD on workplace bullying and tourism industry. I'm actually located in the Maldives, doing my PhD at TGIA. So I was like, I'm in an area where I'm like searching, I'm doing the case study. So first thing is that it's a mixed method.
Yeah.
I have identified some of the propositions where the labor process, the theory is labor process theory, like through where the capitalistic approach come, and then like you guys, like workers are forced to do something. So through that approach, I'm trying to identify why bullying can be a technique or something. So now we have some propositions, and now I am in a stage where I'm trying to explore the what is happening, why this is happening in the tourism sector of the Maldives. And I am trying to do embedded multiple analysis case study to different star categories of the resorts, like 5-star categories, 6-star categories, 3-star categories, and then trying to identify organizational perspective as well. So, but I am trying to interview the individual staff there, like we have different ethnographic races, like because we are catering to the multinational, tourism area. So I am in a situation where I'm trying to identify the unit of analysis, and we also have an agreement where we are trying to do multiple case design because it's a huge big area. So once we are identified with this proposition, and then if we know what is exactly happening in the context of Maldivian tourism resort, and then further we are going to do experimental so that we will identify the relationship between what is actually happening. So it's kind of a mixed method. Initially, the analysis is on case study, like multiple case design through the embedded, so that I will know what is happening. And then further, to confirm that, I'm trying to do experimental where I'll be using relationship, and then I can use some of the control measures where I get it from the cases.
Right.
So yeah, and the session is really helpful. Thank you very much.
Right. Lisa, thank you very much. It was very nice to hear about your study and how you are going to take it forward from the Maldivian context. And yes, agreed with you, all your comments using the why multiple case and the why the embedded method. Thank you, Lisa.
I just have one quick question.
Okay.
Is it like maybe it's not a question but can be debatable? I'm trying to interview with single individuals in the resorts, maybe from different departments like chefs, like accountants, the reception.
Okay.
So my unit of analysis will be the individuals, not the organization. Am I right? So I am confused in my.
Well, without seeing your questionnaire, I cannot tell you whether it is the multiple unit of analysis or multiple of the single units. Because if you are going to ask total different questions from the chefs and again from the reception boys, total different with total two objectives, that is multiple unit of analysis. But if you are going to repeat the same questions from these different employees who are working at different parts of the hotel, then it is single unit of analysis.
Okay, I think I'm clear. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, and I have been instructed by the organizers to give a small break. So it is 3 minutes after 11. Let's meet at 11:10 because we need to wind up by 12 o'clock. Thank you. Stay with the workshop. Hello, welcome back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear.
Right, perfect. So I hope you can see the screen as well. Now we are going to discuss the fourth main point, the collecting the data, and fifth and sixth, there are 2 or 3 more areas to go. So collecting the data for the case studies. Before going out to collect the data, we need to get ourselves prepared. We need to prepare to collect the case study data. But this preparation for data collection could be a little bit complex because we do not know which data to collect exactly. And again, the depthness could be really deep, right? And the width could be really wide. So we need, however, we need to have some guidelines, we need to have some protocols, what type of data we are going to collect and to which extent we should go. Because if you are going to keep on interweaving and interweaving and interweaving, you are going to collect a lots and lots of data. So you again need to think whether they are relevant to our study, my case, my unit of analysis, is it? And if not done well, the entire case study can be jeopardized. And all the early work in defining the research questions and designing the case study will have been for naught, right? So we need to make sure that we collect the right information and right type of information for our case study. So moreover, gaining approval for your case study, showing how human subjects will be protected, can pose another challenge for, especially in the field of medicine, health and medicine. If you're using the human organs, subjects, maybe photographs, right? That is kind of complex. So you need to have proper clearances for the ethical approvals from the ethics review committee of your university. So usually a good preparation begin with the desired skills and the values on the part of the case study investigator. I think we addressed that question earlier, and we need to train for a specific case study, right? We need to sometimes forecast where you are going to place yourself, what type of people you are going to deal with, and how to collect the data from them, right? We also had another question one of the participants asked, because she hasn't been receiving some quality data. We need to prepare ourselves to get this unexpected data, which they're not going to reveal to us. We need to have some strategies and developing a protocol for the study and screen the candidate cases. And perhaps sometimes your data collection might be jeopardized if you have the wrong set of people group to answer. They're not cooperating with you for some reasons. We don't know why. We need to identify that as well. And we can also think of conducting a pilot case study to identify whether this is going to be successful or not. So decide skills and values. I'm not going to spend much on this because we discuss about it. Too many people are drawn to case study research because they believe it is easy, but it is not. Case studies are not easy because you have to plunge into the data, dive into the data to identify the gems in the data. And then many social scientists, especially the budding ones, think case study research can be mastered without much difficulty. They believe that they only will have to learn minimum set of technical procedures like data collection, taking the photographs, you put it into the report, and then you explain it. However, they forget to explain, or they forget to answer the questions like why and how, which are very much important in the case studies. Why it is happening and how it is happening. So what? People are behaving in this way. Those people are fighting with the other people, right? And they're destroying each other's property, something like that. So what will happen next? Where else it has happened? You need to explain it with some concrete evidences, with some cases that you abstracted from other research. And that any of their own shortcomings, formal analytical skills will be unimportant. They think, okay, if you, in qualitative research, your limitation is your imagination, your thinking capacity. If you cannot see through a case, if you cannot see through a phenomena to understand what is behind there, what is lacking there, and what are supporting to make this thing happen, this phenomenon happen, right? You need to identify. That is, which is totally up to you, because you are the person who's going to collect the data. And again, you think it as important, not me. It is not my study. It is you who think it, right? So it is again subjective. And the case study will allow them to simply tell it like it is. No beliefs could be farther from the to from the truth. So we have to be very careful about our skills and the values. And if you are like a lazy person, if you cannot think, I mean not lazy, but if you cannot forecast the situation, if you cannot see through a situation, and if you cannot adapt to the local context, be with them, live with them, and behave like them, and thereafter only you can get the right data. But you cannot simply make one visit to or two visits to a research site, right? Your case, your context, no, you cannot get the data. That is not sufficient. You have to actually live there, at least mentally you have to live there. And in actuality, the demand for the case study on your intellect, ego, and the emotions are far greater than those of any other research method. That is important. And am I ready to start collecting the case study data? So your readiness depends on your own skills level of doing the case studies, as well as you are having the completed formal and preparatory procedure prior to the collecting actual data, such as having properly selected the case to be studied, where you are going to study this case, right? So basically in the PhD research, we identify the theoretical gap, and then in order to fulfill theoretical gap, we look at the context where we are going to do it. Actually, we can, if it is a well-constructed or clearly identified theoretical gap, you can fulfill it either being in Sri Lanka or maybe being in Indonesia, right? The context is irrelevant. There could be significant, there could be different answers coming in, but that theoretical problem could be, or you should be able to apply it in other contexts as well. That is important. And the note test for distinguishing those persons likely to become good case study researcher from those who are not. We cannot just count or look at the questionnaire and say, oh, you are going to be a wonderful researcher. No, that's again depend on how well you are going to build your dialogue, earning the confidence, right? And bring on the discussion, develop it, and get the information out of the respondent. And again, it is important that you ask good questions and interpret the answers fairly, right? What do you mean by good question? The good questions are which are theoretically sound, empirically sound, and you should be able to get sound, develop your research, or you should be able to reach the solution to your research problem, research questions through these questions. They are known as good questions, and good questions actually lay a kind of a ladders or steps to reach your objectives. And again, you need to be a good listener if you're going to be a qualitative researcher, because the respondent is going to talk a lot. So you should be able to screen out, right, filter the information, and they will talk about all the things except the answer that you want, right? There could be occasions. So you need to take him back to the track. Okay, this is the path you have to run, and get the data out of that. And stay adaptive, so that new encountered situations can be seen as opportunities, not threats. Adaptive. There could be differences. You need to adapt it. You need to accept it, acknowledge it, and go forward. And you need to have a firm grasp of the issue being studied, even when in an exploratory mode. Right. The research gap may be kind of theoretical gap, methodological gap, empirical gap, knowledge gap, and evidence gap. Yeah, that's true. But in the PhD level, basically, we are looking at the theoretical gap. Contributing to the other gaps is a part of the research process that you need to do. And even the master's level, if you are doing the kind of a basic research, you need to first identify the theoretical gap, and thereafter you can, in your research, you can contribute your potential contributions. You can say methodological advancement or empirical contributions, like that, right? And then we come to the training to do the case study. You need to have some data collection plans before seeking the approval, especially from your respondents, again from your university and from your respondent. Better to document everything and keep it in your hand. The finalization of the plans cannot occur until after the approval has been granted. The training activities described below may therefore take place over an extended period of time, especially if you're working on a bigger research project, I mean, bigger than your master's, bigger than your PhDs. You need to have some people working with you, working for you, right? And then you need to train them to get the expected deliverables. And for case study research, the key to understand the needed training is to understand that every case study researcher must be able to operate as a senior researcher, because the interpretation is totally at your hand, because you see the things and you believe it is important. Okay, so you need to develop yourself, and you need to become an independent researcher in qualitative research, and you need to make your own intelligent decisions throughout the data collection process. Right. Yeah, Suhana, thank you for the question, but if the time permits, we can discuss about your question. Thank you. Right. So this is my data collection somewhere in a corner of Jaffna, right? Going into the context, identifying my unit of analysis. Actually, we wanted to get some information about how our the senior Hindu people, they spend their rest of the life in temples, right? So with the support of the some data enumerators and the field assistant, we went there and they were interpreting and collecting the data, right? And this is a kind of a complete participant observation, observations, right? Visiting the Nallur festival like in 2019 or 20, I cannot remember exactly. Now fully adapting into the local context, local environment, right? I was there like 7 days continuously in the chariot festival, and complete observer. You do not participate, but the host-guest relationship between the beach boys and the tourists, right? And this is an observer as participant, and this is somewhat old photo. And we made our visit to the Vattappalai Kovil in Mullatiu, right? All these people are Indians, because we do not have these workers who are specialized in the temple construction. So there are some people coming still here in Sri Lanka, having come from India. So we went there to observe certain phenomena there, right? And this is our this is observation of the funeral rituals at Jaffna, the Kirimale, right? They know our existence, our presence, and we have received the due approvals, their consent to observe the things there. Okay. And next step is case study protocol. We need to have a protocol when we are collecting the data. And it has one thing in common with the survey questionnaire, because both directed as a single data point. We have the objective of reaching one particular data point or getting one data point. That is our common objective. And beyond this, similarity are major differences. The protocol contains the instrument, but also contains the procedures and general rules to be followed in using the protocol. So we have to establish our research instruments first. How we are going to collect the data? Is it the interviews? Is it the observations? Or is it some other instruments? And thereafter, we think about the other elements. And the second protocol is directed at an entirely different party than that of a survey questionnaire. And third, having a case study protocol is desirable under all circumstances, but essential if you are doing a multiple case study. So the protocol basically has 4 sections. Actually, this is again according to Yin. You can customize it the way you want with the support and the consent of your supervisors. First, you need to, in the section 1 in your study protocol, you can have your objectives, right? And what issues you are going to address and relevant readings about the topic being investigated. So that is all the homework in the section A, section 1, right? And number 2 or section B is the data collection procedures, including the identification of the likely of the data sources, presentation of credential to the field contacts, and other logistical reminders and everything. You need to plan your entire study. And section C, data collection questions, specific questions that the case study researcher must keep in mind in collecting data and the potential sources of evidence for addressing each question. Like, we can have like 20 different questions in our questionnaire, but you need to look into how long they are going to be with you. You need to get the time, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours. If it is so, when to ask which questions, the order of importance, you need to assess that. Sometimes, okay, you keep on talking about the background information. Sometimes maybe the demographic information, but the time has ticked, and at the end of half an hour, okay, he says, okay, I need to go. right? And you took a great effort in finding this respondent, informant, and the time is up. So you need to be careful about the order of questions as well, right? And again, building the trust, gain their confidence, and they will be able to share more information with you confidently. And the section D, guide for case study report, especially how you are going to draft it, write it, outline, format of the data, use and presentation of other document, bibliographical information, etc. And remember that especially the qualitative research findings need to be analyzed then and there, right? In quantitative research, we conduct our pilot study, we get our questionnaire filled, we go back, we say we have like 100 or 300 or 500, we enter into our SPSS, then we do the analysis after collecting the data. After pilot study, yes, the main study, we have the 500. But in qualitative research, it is not like that. We collect like maybe the information from 3 respondents. We conduct like in-depth interviews or semi-structured interviews. Then you transcribe it, and the transcriptions need to be analyzed on then and there basis or ad hoc basis sometimes, right? You first analyze it, and then you identify, okay, what are the patterns, what are the trends, and what are the repetitive causes and everything. Identify that, and then you go for the 4th interview, right? And so over the time, after completing maybe 8 or 9 or 10 or 15th interview, you will feel, okay, this is the saturating point, I need to stop at this place. So the case study protocols are important, very much important. And then we come to the asking questions. Questions, we have different levels when we are going to ask questions. Level 1 is this, the questions asked of specific interviewee, right? You can have some questions ready for person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, like that. And the questions asked of the individual case. These are the questions in the case study protocol to be answered by the researcher during a single case. So the support of the literature, with the support of your protocol, you can have some specific questions to be asked from the respondents belong to one particular individual case. And level 3 questions asked of the patterns finding across multiple cases. Sometimes, we need to find the data about some exclusive data, which is coming only from our case study. And again, we need to get some data which are supporting some previous literature, or maybe the literature coming from different countries, because in the analysis, we have to show to which extent our study supports the international findings. And we also need to show to which extent our findings are different from the international findings, right? So that is where we are going to establish a kind of a uniqueness to our case, our research. And you can ask level 4 questions as well, which is about the entire study. Basically, after asking all these questions, now the respondent also has some idea, okay, this guy wants, is keep on asking about these questions, right? And so he answered all, and finally, you can ask the question, okay, what do you think about this particular case? And what are your suggestions to overcome this particular issue? About the representing the entire case, you can ask the questions. And finally, we have the level 5 question, normative questions about policy recommendations and conclusions, going beyond the narrow scope of the study. The normative questions, right? The particular questions about especially about the empirical implementations, you can ask. So we have the data collection source as well. From an individual, about an individual, what you are going to ask, and again from an organization, about an individual, what you can ask, and from an individual about an organization, and from an organization about an organization. So now here what you have to study is that, understand is that when you are collecting the data, go for the tiniest structures, or segment it to the smallest piece to collect the data. If you can ask the questions from the cleaners, from the plumbers, or from any of the people in the organization which you think as important to your study, please go for it, right? We cannot ignore any type of the data. You can ask about the questions about their behavior, attitude, perception, right? Maybe policies, records, right? So on and so forth, right? So, so the study here concludes the individual, if the case study is an individual, if the case study is an organization. So, however, this is not, we cannot apply this cross-sectionally. This might, we need to customize this according to our research requirement. And the other thing is that we can see the pilot case studies even in qualitative research, right? Not many people are doing pilot case studies in qualitative research, but in quantitative, yes, right? When our students come with their wonderful operationalization table with like, and then they come with the nice questionnaire, you simply ask, okay, do the pilot study and show me that value and this value. So they find 50 or 100 students, do the analysis and show you, and then you are confident about the data and giving the approval for the student to go for the main data collection. Similarly, we can do some rich information or data collection process in the qualitative research as well. A pilot case study will help you to refine your data collection plans with respect to both content of the data and the procedures to be followed. In this regard, it is important to note that a pilot test is not a pre-test. And the pilot case is more formative, assisting you to develop relevant lines of questions, possibly even providing some conceptual clarification for the research design as well. And the findings of the pilot case study can also be used in your analysis. Now, in my Beach Boys study, I did the pilot case study with two or three senior Beach Boys, right? Because I didn't know the scope of these the operations of the Beach Boys and what type of services they were giving. I mean, I just selected this topic out of curiosity. And however, with the support of the pilot case study, I was able to develop a kind of a framework within which then I ask the questions during the next rounds of interviews from the Beach Boys. So pilot case studies can be recommended. And then we come to the 6 sources of evidence, where when it comes to the qualitative data collection, basically the documentations, whatsoever the, say, the police is, and this document, that document, yes, they are important. And each of these data sources are having their strengths and the weaknesses. Archival records, right? Interviews are also sources of evidence you can use in your case studies. Observations, right? And the participant observation and maybe physical artifacts. You go to the, I told you, the Samadhi stupa, right? Look at it and try to generate some meanings there, right? And the 4 principles of case study data collection. Number 1, you need to use multiple sources of evidence as much as possible, right? As much as possible. We call it the triangulation, different types of data. Actually, when it comes to the triangulation, it is not only about the data we are talking. We have the data triangulation, methodology triangulation, theory triangulation, and investigator triangulation. If you can triangulate all your methods, data, theories, and even the researcher, the validity of your research goes high. In all my research, actually, in all my published works, I use this data triangulation very, very much, right? I do not entirely believe in the interviews. I do not entirely believe in the observations. I do not entirely believe in the journal or the newspaper articles. No, I always have my curiosity, my suspicion about my research question. So I keep on asking the same question from different data sources, which help me to strongly and to build my case as a answer to my research problem. And principle number 2, create a case study database. So the data or evidentiary base you need to create by yourself, that you need to be report within an article, report, or book, or maybe you can record it in an oral form. And thereafter you have to maintain a chain of evidence, which means, okay, maybe there are some pieces of information in the articles, pieces of information in the report, pieces of information in the book. So whatever the related pieces of information need to be changed together, right? Whatever the related, maybe under one theme, there could be a couple of themes, there could be 10 themes, right? Everything comes from your database, right? And you need to maintain a chain of evidence. And if you have more evidences, it will again increase the reliability of your study, right? Any questions before moving into the analyzing the case study data? We have 5 different methods in analyzing the case study data.
Sir, will you discuss the validity criteria in terms of the case study in this session?
If time permits only, because I have a slide separately to discuss it. Let's see.
Okay, sir.
Right. Then we move forward, analyzing the case study data. Number one is the pattern matching. Although, I mean, if you go through my research articles, I might not have used the pattern matching or the crowd matching or so different terminologies, but these are exactly what we have used. So it is up to you. The researchers can decide whether to use the terminologies, but I highly recommend you to use these proper terminologies when you are going to justify your research methodologies for the examiners. And for case study analysis, one of the most desirable techniques to use is to use pattern matching logic. Such a logic compares an empirically based pattern, that is one based on the findings of your case study, with a predicted one made before you collected your data. Sometimes with the light of the literature, with the support of the literature, you can develop like propositions I told you, right? And if you get the evidences to support your propositions, that is like matching the patterns, right? You will find some relevant data and you can group them together. And if the empirical and predicted patterns appear to be similar, the results can help the case study to strengthen the internal validity, right? So you postulate, you hypothesize, okay, there is this type of a relationship, I mean, at least qualitatively. And then when you are analyzing the data, you feel, my goodness, yes, it is same. My study is similar to the Oklahoma study or the Fujiyama study, or some other study from some other country. So we call it the internal validity. So which means you have properly and accurately develop your research problem and even interview questions, and you have applied them in the proper correct research context, right? And then you come to the valid references. And thereafter, you can also match the outcomes to patterns. And if the patterns cannot be generated, you need to revisit the initial proposition. You might have done some mistakes. And definitely in qualitative research, this pattern matching is important. Now, this is a kind of a pattern match that you can see. We can conduct the interviews, many interviews, and then we analyze it. And then you identify, you have to mention some key phrases of information separately, and this is my respondent, 1 2 3 4 5 respondents, right? And then you can combine the similar respondents together, similar responses together, right? So yellows belongs to one pattern, right? And the greens belongs to another pattern. You can also call it a theme, right? Reds another theme, like that. And this is also a pattern matching in my transitional domestic tourist gas paper. I already sent it to you via the chat box. And we have the open codes, focus codes, and overarching themes. Actually, now here I have done the thematic analysis. That is also a kind of pattern matching. In case study, we call it the pattern matching. So whatever the related information, you put them together and you give a name to it. In thematic analysis, we call it the focus codes, and the relevant focus codes are again collected and give a name, and that is theme development, right? And actually, you can also combine these three and make a kind of a new theory, give birth to a new concept. And that is what we call as grounded theory if you do not have a proper theoretical backing. Right. And this is also a kind of a pattern matching that we did, that we abstracted from, that we generated from the NVivo software, right? And there are about POSO travels to Jaffna. We had like 4 key themes, and one is places to visit, pre-visit motivation, reconciliation, and the pre-visit destination image. And each of these themes have like different number of categories based on the information we received. And this is like pattern matching. And once you click on any of these small icons, you will get a lot of related information in it. So this is one way of analyzing your data, and it is the most popular way of data pattern matching for case studies. And number 2 is explanation building. The goal is to analyze the case study data by building an explanation about the case, right? It basically goes with the interpretivism. You look at the situation, right? Now, this example, we have been to the corporal's place. They are in Elephant Pass. We give an interpretation to it, and we visit the other temple in the northern peninsula, right? We give an interpretation to it. So this is like explanation building. So everything has a story, its own story to tell. So in case studies, you have to give the life to these stories, the beliefs, right? Maybe some ancient, what is mentioned in the ancient chronicles, you have to consider and explain how or why something has happened. So how this incident happened, why is it happened, right? And so many. And in most case studies, explanation building occurs in narrative form because such narrative cannot be precise. The better case studies are the ones in which the explanation reflects some theoretically significant propositions whose magnitude might start offset the lack of precision. So the precision might be some problems in some other cases, right? But in qualitative research, we cannot expect in all the time, and we cannot expect the same answer over 10 respondents. So over 2 respondents, no. But in quantitative, the differences may be low, but in qualitative, differences might be bigger because we give the full freedom for the respondent to respond to our question. So many reasons affect that. And right. And then we come to and we have the iterative nature of explanation building, which means that say this Hasalaka Gamini, Corporal Hasalaka Gamini's case, you develop it with the light of the the ethnic violence and the Sinhalese only bill, right? You have to go to that level, or maybe you can go to the King Elara's period. The war took place between the Hindus and the Buddhists in the ancient times as well, right? So you keep on building the explanation, but in the meantime, after you read it out, and then after writing it down 2 months later, you read. While you are reading it out for the second time, you will understand, okay, there are some points that I have missed, right? So you can revisit it. We call it the iterative nature of explanation building. It is like you have half completed a big jigsaw puzzle, right? But later you find some pieces, maybe here and there, under the couch or on the table, something like that. So you have to put that missing piece into the puzzle to make it a bigger and whole story. And revising the statement or proposition or comparing other details of the case against the revision. We need to do that as well. And comparing the revision to the findings from a second, third, or more cases. Okay, because there are going to be many stories, and this particular story is going to make a big difference in our other cases. And repeating this process as many times as required, right? It will be you cannot decide it, and you have to keep on doing it till you reach the maybe theoretical saturation. And then we have the time series analysis. I'm quite sure you have heard this name, time series analysis, where we do the statistical analysis to identify the occurrences of certain phenomena, right? Maybe with respect to money, economic development, employment, so on and so forth, or maybe foreign currency. But we can do it with the support of a software that is time series analysis, and it can be considered as a case study as well. Then we have finally the logic model. Now I also follow the logic model, whereas you have the propositions one. Say there's one proposition, you do a case study, and the input of proposition one, the output of proposition one will be the input of proposition two, right? And then with that, you go for the field study to conduct the case study, right? And you analyze it, and whatever the outcome from the proposition 2 will be attributed to proposition 3 as inputs, right? And you further analyze it, and then you have an outcome. So that is known as the logic model, whereas the output of one proposition will be an input of another proposition. So there are many studies that we conduct in this manner, which is also very much valid in the qualitative landscape. So logic model stipulates and operationalizes a complex chain of occurrences or events over an extended period of time. We have to look at maybe 5 years, 10 years, but in my case, it is more than 10 years. And the events are staged in repeated cause-effect pattern, whereby a dependent variable and at an earlier stage becomes the independent variable for the next stage. So it goes like that. Right. And then the fifth way of analyzing the case study data is cross-case synthesis. The technique is especially relevant if a case study consists of at least 2 cases. The analysis is likely, you can have more than 2 cases, and the analysis is likely to be easier and the findings likely to be more robust than having only a single case. Now, see, I will directly take you to the this example. Now, in my study, I was doing the ethnic nationalism and the civic nationalism and how the post-war development. There are the 3 main cases we conducted: the ethnographic findings, social media reviews, and this one is, I think, all right. Okay, the combination of these 2 gave birth to another item. So this is cross-case synthesis. However, there are some similarities. We have the political component here, and we have the political component here as well. We also have the attraction here and the attractions here. And the amenities, no, only the second case has, and the destination attribute second case has, and the experience, destination attribute and the experience belongs to the first case. So I go back. The technique is especially relevant if a study consists of at least 2 cases. See, I have 2 cases. So we use the cross-case synthesis. And the analysis is likely to be easier and the findings likely to be more robust than having only a single case. Having more than 2 cases could strengthen the findings even further. And the cross-case synthesis can be performed when the individual case studies have previously been conducted and independent research studies, right, or as pre-designed part of the same study. Now, in here, we did it as a pre-designed part, pre-developed part. 2 studies were conducted separately, and then we did the pattern matching. However, according to Yin, he says that you can pattern match your findings with a pre-developed case, maybe by another author at another country on a different time period. Yes, that can also be done. And right, in either situation, the technique treats each individual case study as a separate study. In this way, techniques does not differ from other research synthesis, aggregating the findings across series of individual cases. So finally, we can combine them. Right. And then we have the reporting the case study findings. The final section 6. When we are going to report the case study findings, we have to be very much careful, because sometimes our reviewers, our journal reviewers, editors, or maybe our examiners will look at what you have done and what are the main findings. Actually, when I was reading for the PhD, my supervisor always, whenever he get a new application, the first thing he search is the reference list and check how many good quality index journals this student has referred to when developing the research proposal. So we need to be careful about reporting all this information. A case study does not follow any stereotype form. No. In the journals, you have a particular conventional standard. In dissertation, you have a particular standard depending on the standards of the policies of the university. But in the case studies, you don't need to. Even in my study, since it is a case study method, I did not have a separate methodological section, no methodology section. I will show you. You might not believe. Actually, my professor told me I don't need to, I really wanted to have the methodology section, but he said otherwise. Right. Yeah. right? So chapter 1 is basically the introduction chapter. You can see my screen, right? My thesis, content, table of content. Samira, can you see? Hello.
Yes, sir. We can see. We can
Yes,
see, sir.
sir, we can see.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Here you can see my first chapter is the introduction part, but here I have given a very simple entry to my research method, just 2 pages, right? 21, 2, and research framework also, okay, maybe 3-4 pages. And my second chapter, literature review. My third chapter, research field, right? Now there's no separate, there's no methodology, but under this is also part of the literature actually. This is research field or the context. And then chapter 4, research on construction of ethno-religious, nationalistic and civic nationalistic through post-war tourist gaze in Jaffna. But under that, I have the methodology somewhere, I think. See, case study design and the procedure, how I did that, right? And how I collected the data and what was my theoretical stance, my personal stance on this case, right? And this study 1, even study 2, I had the design and procedure under which the thematic analysis and the data triangulation analysis and the in vivo, everything has been discussed. And even in case study 3, the same thing. And chapter 5, so the quantitative approach, I told you it was a mixed method research. And here I have the research method and hypothesis, 2 pages. Hypothesis development, right? That is from 270 to 200. So 8 pages are there. Then cite, right? So all the quantitative analysis are there. And chapter 6 is the conclusion. See, so there's no research methodology part in my school, in my university. So you have to, however, now don't try to remove the methodology part from your case study. You have to discuss it. I mean, I'm sure you have been given like some formats to follow. You have to stick to that format. But what I want to highlight is that in case studies, there's no hard, fast format to follow, right? Basically, you need to justify your method to your supervisors and your examiners. Going back to my presentation, sharing my presentation, right? And most of the notable case study scholars have been ones who like to compose and also actually had a flair of writing for presenting results orally. Now, the case studies are actually sometimes they are like stories, right? You have to explain them in a narrative form and present it to your audience. So to do good case studies, you should want to become good at composing and not merely to put up with it, right? You need to logically arrange the data and present them. And the case study report can include textual and the non-textual and the graph, charts, bar charts and everything. And my PhD thesis also came up with an audio track, right? Which I included as a CD about some incidents and some videos as well. So you have that freedom. Right. Now it is 12 o'clock. I'm going to wind up the session. We have some other commitments as well. And yeah. There's another important thing I want to discuss here, right? So when you are following a multiple case study method, please pay attention to here. You can have a single case study and single unit of analysis. So in the report, you can present the findings. You can list them, finding 1, finding 2, finding 3, like that. Or if it is a multiple case study where you have more than one, you can present the case 1. You can present this. This is what I followed as well in one case. The case 1, maybe Jaffna case, maybe Mulatiu case, maybe Mana case, and then the findings come. Finding 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then it is clear. We have another option to present our multiple case studies, whereas the finding 1 may be about the culture. Oh, sorry, for peace building. That is my finding 1. how it happened in Jaffna, how it happened in Mullaitivu, how it happened in Mana. Then post-war development, how it happened in Jaffna, Mullaitivu, Vaunia. And this one is reconciliation. Jaffna, Mullaitivu, Vaunia. But here, Vaunia, we put Vaunia here, and then post-war peace building, post-war tourism, and post-war economic building. This is, okay, this is Jaffna, this is Vaunia. Again, we repeat the same thing. So there are two ways of presenting the data. Always remember that. So this is another area where our researchers get confused themselves. Right. And here it is again important, the case identities. Now, conventionally, we did not feel confident to expose the names of our respondents or maybe the cases. But now the latest literature says that if you are not going to reveal some confidential information or maybe some sensitive information, you need to expose yourself and your respondents, of course, with their consent, and the names of your research sites. So that is important when it comes to case identification. Right. Right. Okay. So this is the reliability and validity cases. We don't have the time to discuss in length, but it is important that we discuss the reliability. We ensure the reliability and the validity of our case study and our qualitative research by means of triangulation. We discuss about triangulation and the clarification of research bias. Sometimes the researchers may be biased to the data, may be biased to the respondents because of their ethnic background, religious background as well. So maybe we need to do a declaration. And the persistent observation, which means for a longer period, you observe, you be there, you observe the phenomena, and then you report it. And the prolonged engagement, similar to kind of persistent observation, but here you engage with your unit of analysis or whatever the context there. And the thick description means the rich description, you have to explain everything in detail. We also have the member check-in. You can ask one of your research members to go through your transcripts, or maybe your coordinate hierarchies, your everything, to check whether you have followed the proper structure. And then we have the external editing. We can invite some external people, some experts to look into your cases. Actually, these are just 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, but we have more. For example, we have the back translation, another method. And we also have, we discuss about the triangulation. We need to also discuss about building the discussions in comparative terms with respect to the international findings, local findings, to show to which extent your study similar or different to the other studies, right? And again, we can have the, in order to ensure the quality of a case study, we can have the construct validity, internal validity, external validity, and the reliability. There are also some of the methods. I'm sure some of you are familiar, but you can check for it. So these are the two main recommended texts. Actually, in order to make this presentation, I mainly use these 2 books, the Robert Innes Case Study Research and Application, Design and Method. This is a SAGE publication. 2018, and second one is SAGE Handbook of Qualitative Research, Denzins, 2017. Highly recommended these 2 books, especially the Innes book. He's the pioneer in the case study method in the modern era. So with that, I conclude this session. Maybe we can spend 1 minute for the questions, if you have any.